I'm Aaron here in the Bowtie Treasure studio, and as always, we have a fun project. And as you pop in, say hi, and make sure you holler at a friend. Let them know we're here. And I have behind me a I'm calling a traditional style buffet, and I've already put a coat of paint on it. Let's see, what did I use? Rustic Red, that's what it is. Rustic Red. And I thought, I haven't done red in a while, so I just pulled them all out, right? Just get them all out. I haven't really figured out exactly what I'm doing with it, so the fun part about being live with me sometimes is we just wing it. So, hey Kathy from Michigan, hope you're doing well up there. Thank you so much for watching. We are going to really kind of go with more of a layered wet look. I've done it a few times, and I think that would be cool on this one. It's the original before picture looked like. So this is really what I purchased. You can see what we would call the traditional bat wing hardware, and even the, I think it's called dental floss, maybe their teeth across underneath. I took those off. I thought, you know what, let's get this a little bit more contemporary. I am going to also change out the hardware. If you'll notice on the doors near the hinges, there's this kind of like wing brass. Well, those actually were just put on by nails. I took those off. Anything I can do to give this a little bit more of a contemporary look. That's my goal tonight, or at least on this project overall. This is the hardware. I did a project not long ago, and I bought extra pieces, and I thought, let's go with this. So I really had to find a palette that went well with this copper, brushed copper, and I think that's going to work really well on the overall piece, so that's cool. So there's a couple ways that you can do this project, and unfortunately it's not really super conducive for a live, just because you need to do multiple layers and you need them to dry. So I may get the heat gun out a little bit here and there, but the first thing you want to do is get your first coat of paint on there. I did clean it really well. I did 2 coats of Bonding Boss, love Bonding Boss, good stuff. Hey Anna, good to see you. And then 1 coat of Rustic Red. I'm gonna try and keep these colors squared away, but there's Rustic Red, Rusty Nail, Honky Tonk Red, Barn Red, and Muscadine Wine. I also have over off in the wings chocolate and coffee bean. So I think what I'll do is let's work with the light colors first, and then we will work from the dark colors. Let's just, so I don't have to keep dipping into these. It gives you a little bit of freedom to be more artistic, I guess. And I've expressed on this type of technique that this just gives you some freedom to be messy and not have to be super precise with your work. All right, that may not be enough paint, but I would rather have some. First thing I'm going to do, you can add water to this, depends on how runny and messy you want it to be. So, and when I say just add water, just pour some in there, and that'll just give you some extra water to work around. All right, since I don't have my squirt bottle, we'll use my misting bottle and be a little aggressive with it. You want a nice wet surface, and we're going to go ahead and, as I mentioned, I want to use a few chip brushes just because I don't have to worry about making a mess. All right, I like to put my palette on the floor only because it's kind of big and heavy. So when I do something like this, now I could use another light color. Both of these are still pretty close. I'm not even sure how much I'm just gonna see. That's the problem. And what I'm saying is just go in there. I'm using probably more Rusty Nail just because it's a little lighter, and just get it on there. You see how it's lightening it up? Y'all gonna have to help me remember what colors I just used. I just poured them in there. So we have red, we have Honky Tonk Red and Rusty Nail, I think. But just get in there. It doesn't really matter. But just remember what you're doing, because you're gonna have to repeat it all the way around as far as how much light you put at the top and bottom. All right, and then always keep it wet. And then I think I'm going to just fade that out a little bit, and we'll come back in with darker colors a little bit later on. Okay, now if you watch me enough, this is our fun part. We always do this. All right, the main reason I'm doing this, one, add some interest and texture, but notice how I'm kind of vignetting the bottom of that transition, and we'll come back later on and work on that. Now, if I leave that right there, notice that I'm not using any more light colors towards the bottom. That's gonna be fine. I actually took the doors off when I painted it to the stage, but I thought, okay, for this technique, I really need everything in place because I want to build it all together. But normally when I have drawers sitting outside and when the doors close over, I usually take all that off, especially if I'm doing a solid color. But this one, I'm not doing a solid color. I really need it all to kind of develop at the same time. And again, let me just show you my tray is down there. There's parts right in here that are just tough to get to, but with this technique, you're given a little bit more freedom to be messy. So you're just gonna have to be not careful, but plan on opening the doors, closing the doors, pulling the drawers out. Here's another thing that I've done. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I put tape right here so that when I pull these out to paint, I'm not getting paint on the side of my drawers, which can be difficult to get chalk paint off wood, and I don't want to sand it. In here, I just need to be careful. I like to tape the inside when I have this kind of scenario, and that allows me to be a little bit more random, I guess. Random is the wrong word. What's the word I'm thinking of? Spontaneous. So keep that misting bottle nearby. How many layers of paint really is up to you. I just encourage you to mix it up, and but if you like experimenting and you want just, I would almost put this in like a grungy boho. I mean, you can wet distress this stuff. We did wet distressing last week. That was cool. All right, so don't get too far without then coming back in and just give it a little bit of a dab. Some of you might like it really drippy, like you want the paint to run. Totally cool with that. I don't really. Sometimes you just can't figure out exactly how much water to use. So when you realize you did too much, you gotta either stop it or. But yeah, I've got a few videos like this, so I enjoy doing that. But you see how it's kind of stopping right there. Hopefully you can see that. If not, that's okay. It'll dry, and sometimes with the reflection of the wet. We're going to get underneath here, and then we're going to close the door. I'm just using two colors over, if I can rehearse this. Base coat is Rustic Nail. I'm using Rusty Nail and Honky Tonk Red, I believe. You swap whatever colors you want. Nice and wet. Just go ahead and show you my tray again. So there's my two colors right there. I'm just randomly getting paint on my brush. You don't have to worry too much about, did I get the color exactly right? Because they're not going to see the other side at the same time, so it may not be perfect anyway. Just as long as you kind of remember to keep those two colors in your palette, you should be fine. And you know, bring that color around to the other side sometimes, that's fine. I got a little bit more of the extra lighter color, and that's okay. So watch how I get the others. I'm re-misting it because that allows me to lift the color and mix it up a little bit better. I had thought about using maybe some of the new stencils and new Dixie Belle releases on it, but didn't feel like there's a huge amount of places for it, maybe on the front panels of the doors, but I'm not sure this is the right piece to do that on. All right. So this is chocolate. I could do coffee bean, but I don't want to get that dark. And we'll just put a little bit on this plate. And this is Muscadine wine. And we'll put some right there next to chocolate. Okay, so I'm just gonna wet the lower section, and we're gonna go back into the tray, make a little bit of a mess. And this should give us a darker tone overall. So half my brush has Muscadine wine. Remember that since I painted a base coat, this is the second color of paint, so the first coat's getting less and less transparent. And I may still come back with coffee bean and darken some crevices and areas. Coffee bean's gonna be almost black. So this is a darker than the top section. It's, I think it's looking good. It's a very interesting color because it's not Muscadine wine. It's not chocolate either. Okay, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna do the same thing. And I'm looking to kind of softly blend these two colors together. Now, if you, there's no limit to how many layers you can do. If you want, you can come back with burlap for all that matters and put a wash over all of this. You're just gonna start losing it. But if you like depth and layers and you've seen some of these cool pieces, you're like, what in the world? It looks like it was naturally aged over 1,000 years. Well, it takes layers to do that. So you can see a little bit of the light going to the dark. Kind of like paint drying, right? It's not a fast technique, but it can be very rewarding. And I forget, I need to do some of that little spitting on here, just a little bit of texture. So the 1-inch brush, first thing we're going to do is we're going to mist this. Let's put the coffee bean on the floor. And we're just going to use the 1-inch artist brush. It's totally optional if you don't want to accentuate this panel, but with this color and this traditional style, anything I can do to add some drama and have some fun, I think will just make it more interesting and appealing to the next person. But, decide for yourself what works well. This is the French tip. It might be a little small for what I need it to do, but we'll just use it for the first run to kind of, what I'm doing is I'm just softening that brush stroke or that paint, creating more of a softer edge, more of a vignette, I like to say. So as we talked before, this is what I call shading. You might use wax for yours, but this is coffee bean at its finest. If you feel like you need a little bit more of a softer approach, you can always just get a bigger brush. My favorite of all time is my old oval small, and it does a beautiful job of feathering that. You don't have to feather it, I guess, but I like to feather it. So look how contrasting and pop that created. going to take, I believe this is Honky Tonk Red. It's the brightest red on my palette. And I'm just going to take my premium chip brush and I'm going to add some highlights. So let me pull you in on that because I think you're going to be able to see it better if I do that. And by highlights, I mean just almost like either dragging down or just kissing the edge. And you could dry brush this, you could use your finger if you wanted to. And it might even be kind of cool to use like even a teal color, but this is where I might just, I'm trying to figure out how to hold the brush. There's hardly any paint on this brush, by the way. I removed most of it off. So just kissing those edges, creating a cool highlight. See how I'm dragging almost at a flat angle? So just creating some cool highlights. So just find ways and places to do that. This is kind of a cool technique that I'd like to do. Just don't put a lot of paint on your brush. Just adding depth, texture, variety, interest, whatever you want to call it. So if you want to see some more of this type of technique on my YouTube channel, look for French Provincial. I did a pink dresser not long ago, and I did a lot of these techniques on there. That turned out really fun. And but I'm almost simulating, let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm almost simulating this brushed copper, right? What do you think? Which one do you like better? If you say you're like the original, we can't be friends. Just kidding. We can always be friends, and we can agree to disagree, right? I hate that statement. All right, I think that's it for tonight. I hope that gives you some things to think about, try some techniques on your projects, but I had fun, right? All right, until next time, I'm Aaron here in the Bowtie Treasure Studio. Y'all have a good night. We'll see you next week, probably again on YouTube. All right, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.
That's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.